Hello and welcome to another episode of interview series at Open Source Workplace. My name is Stephen Todd. I'm the founder of Open Source Workplace. Open Source Workplace is a network for workplace professionals who are here seeking to share information, insights, knowledge about workplace for the express purpose of maximizing workplace experience and workplace productivity and employee experience. So part of that series, what we want to try and do is to bring professionals to you, give you an introduction to them and sort of learn the insights and share that knowledge with you. And today I'm very privileged to have Michael Ippolito, who is with Newmark Knight Frank. I've known Michael for a little while, had wonderful experience interacting with him and doing some real estate deals with him. So Michael, thank you for joining us today. And if you want to give a quick introduction.
Sure. Thanks, Steve. It's good to be here on a Friday morning working from my home office. I've been at Newmark Knight Frank since 1991. I've had various roles over the years. Most recently, what I'm doing now is I created and built and building a group called the Activation Group, which is more of a consultative division within the company that focuses on core asset strategy, M&A, and financial structuring for corporations.
Great. That sounds quite a big ordeal there, but it sounds interesting. But obviously I want to sort of take you back to the sort of outset. So back in 1991, what got you interested in corporate real estate?
Well, I actually got interested in corporate real estate prior to 91 when I was in college. In the mid 80s, I was a real estate, actually a finance major at Boston University, and took real estate finance classes. And I had a professor by the name of Keith Wenzel, who still teaches there now actually. Was a pretty dynamic guy, and he's the one that got me interested in corporate real estate finance and what's involved in the complexities of corporate real estate finance. And that really is what started me. After college in actually 87, I got a job at the Empire State Building as a leasing agent. And that's really where I learned about real estate operations, about companies, what was important to companies. And in 91 is when I switched to the tenant side to work at Newmark. And really what's interesting from what I'm doing today in terms of the alignment of real estate, finance, operations, actually stems back to those early days when I just first got interested in real estate in the first place.
So with all this evolution, we're still trying to achieve the same thing, right?
We're just doing it better and smarter.
There you go, leveraging technology, right? So,
exactly.
So with that, you know, we talk about technology, we talk about the brokerage and different things that you've been doing. I mean, how do you think technology is playing into that corporate real estate brokerage and sort of, you sort of think about smart contracts and how that may work. Do you see that sort of being another evolution or opportunity?
It's a huge opportunity. Some people think it may replace brokerage or advisory, but it definitely will not. It's something that we think is an enabler for us. So what the technology has done is made it a lot easier for us to get information, better research, better analysis. Smart contracts will make the process more efficient. It may hurt the legal industry, but it's not going to really hurt the brokerage industry or help the brokerage industry. So I think what it is forced brokerage to do, or brokers to do, is act more like corporate consultants. So it's not really, the real value isn't understanding or knowing the market as much, because technology has helped us all do that better. The difference is now understanding how that real estate is going to impact a company's financials, right? Their balance sheet, their income statement, how real estate will affect overall corporate operations, and how to better align real estate with corporate objectives. So we're very excited by technology in our industry. It's making us all much better advisors for our clients.
No, it's really interesting, and you're absolutely right. The perception is the smart contracts actually will eliminate the brokers, but you actually kind of see it a different way, which I guess whenever you're interacted, and to your point, consulting for organizations, with organizations, aligning with their needs and sort of building that strategy together with all that M&A and everything you're building there, you can see how those absolutely dovetail into it. So obviously, part of one aspect of that, of the real estate world, is co-working. Now, co-working's been around for a while, serviced offices. It's just got a little more trendy the last few years. But how do you think that has evolved or changed, enterprises' perspective of, using small flexible spaces? Or from your perspective, from a brokerage, when you're advising clients, do you sort of push them or not direct them or encourage them to go different ways rather than building out their own corporate office? Is this an opportunity for them to facilitate, to move to more flexible space in the future?
Sure. So co-working has evolved, as you said, over time, but it's really taken off recently because companies work differently as well, right? So it aligns very much with how companies work. When you think of a corporate real estate assets, you could break them down into core, strategic, and operational. And companies never wanted to have never wanted to always have long-term leases, but for the most part, we're forced to do so because of the CapEx required, and it's most financially effective to have that cost amortized over time, right, and depreciated over time. So it didn't make a lot of sense, or wasn't financially compelling to do short-term leases. Co-working has enabled that to happen. So when we look at a company's portfolio, the parts of their real estate that should be short-term, we can now do in co-working. It creates that flexibility, it makes that flexibility affordable for a company to have short-term space where they couldn't have it before. And how we actually have incorporated that into our advisory practices, we'll break down what a corporation needs within a space. We'll look at what their business objectives are, look at their business cycles when they may need to ramp up or contract, and we'll develop a percentage of their portfolio to be in co-working space. So for example, one client, in every market we go into, between 10 and 15% of their space in that market will be co-working. So it implies, it gives their employees some flexibility, so they like it, right? So then some place can work from a co-working space instead of either working from home or being forced to go into the office. But also the most valuable reason is that the company, as they expand, they can easily do it in co-working at a reasonable cost without having long-term commitment. And if they contract, they can easily shed that space without being stuck with dark space and subway space.
Yeah, and do you find that whenever folks are looking at co-working options, they're going to a single provider, or they're actually just, it all depends on the market?
It really depends on the market. Now that there's several providers out there, and they're all doing a really good job of marketing, we're being asked the question, well, which one should they go to? In some cases, if they can do a national or global contract, there's value to that. In other cases, they want to know within the market, every opportunity is available in a certain geography so that they can make a decision on where they want to go. They also all have some little bit of a different perception in terms of how they market, and that may align better or worse to our corporate client.
Yeah, I mean, obviously one of the benefits, is, my role at NASDAQ, it's, we look at things, one of the things we always want is flexibility, and the co-working option provides a lot of that flexibility. But the other side of that, with all that flexibility where I can take a lease and I can, make short-term decisions from the co-worker's perspective, do you think there's going to be a desire for them to provide more longer-term commitments or get longer-term commitments from enterprise clients simply because of that turnover and the management of that and the risk associated with those contracts?
Sure, and that's already happened. So every one of the major co-working firms has an enterprise division where they're actually going out and targeting companies like NASDAQ and saying, we'll build out your space for you, we'll take over your lease, you can do a long-term lease with us. So they're doing those standalone type of engagements, which helps their financials, right? Gives them longer term revenue, a revenue source for longer term, but they're also using it as an anchor for some of their larger co-working facilities. So if they have 5 floors in a building, they could lease out 2 long-term to a company, and the rest can be their shorter term space. So there's a nice alignment between both those different businesses. Mm-hmm,
mm-hmm. Yeah. No, it'll be really interesting to see the perspective and how that changes, It's something that, I'm going to watch this space, how it goes. But what other future changes in real estate do you see that sort of excite you as you sort of, you're planning to build this new group and sort of the future vision for yourself and for Newmark?
Well, co-working is clearly one. That's part of it. And what's actually interesting in co-working is the different segments. So there's a company, for example, called Meet and Place, and their niche is actual meeting spaces for, say, 2 to 50 people. And that's their whole focus. So it's not co-working, but it's actually outsourcing meeting rooms so companies don't have to take up that space to have conference facilities. So that segmentation in the actual use of space itself. So the whole that whole area is really been exciting for real estate. I would say right now, it's the most exciting time in our industry. There's a lot happening. I think the focus on the employee experience has been tremendous, because now real estate is, as opposed to being looked at as a cost where you need to be able to provide a place for employees to go, that the necessary cost of evil to do business. So now it's actually looked at as a way to attract and to retain employees. Okay, that's a very exciting part of our overall industry, and the importance given to retention and attraction of employees. It changes the whole perspective on how everyone looks at real estate, and the investment that goes into space utilization. The other thing that we're seeing is that real estate's being looked at in terms of long-term planning for companies. So we do 20-year studies for companies. What is the future of work going to be like? How will employees work? What's the impact of AI, technology, robotics, the cloud, urbanization? All of those factors that are now being considered by companies when they look at their business long-term planning to incorporate how it's going to affect real estate, which is very exciting, because a lot of the jobs that are going to be happening in 20 years don't exist today. So you're trying to think through what the world is going to be like, and what jobs are going to be like, and what space needs to be to accommodate these jobs. And we don't even necessarily know what all those jobs are. So that's exciting. We're actually doing a talk at Miplam's PropTech conference in New York in November about just that, the future of work, urbanization, future of cities. So we're excited about that. The most exciting part to me in what's happening today is really what took effect in January with the changes in the accounting regulations, FASB and IFRS, and how companies have to now account for their real estate on their balance sheet. What that's done is given us as advisors better transparency into a company's true cost of operations. Because prior to this, companies didn't really know, for the most part, what their true cost of occupancy was. And that is an area that over the last 8 months has gotten tremendous focus, and has enabled us to help companies look at how to structure their portfolio. Because also, as a result of these accounting changes, we're able to look at how a company structures its portfolio, from leasing, different structures within leasing, different structures in terms of how you own, the changes in interest rates, and the reduction in interest rates also create some opportunity. So we're looking at ways to minimize the real estate impact on a company's balance sheet and income statement, and in some cases using those savings and proceeds to drive optimization, employee satisfaction, workplace, so that, again, that whole cycle going back to aligning of finance, real estate operations, and business objectives all coming together has been really exciting.
Wow, there's a lot there, Michael. There really is, and from my own perspective, the fact of getting data, correlating that with the real estate cost, the portfolio, the employee experience, I love all this stuff. And obviously we have seen a lot of changes in the perspective of the financial accounting. Is there one or two things that you sort of noted just in those initial studies that you want to highlight or to talk about?
I think that how companies look at their portfolio. So I'll give you an example. I mentioned the core, strategic, and operational. And the conventional wisdom always was, if it's a core asset, especially for a larger, maybe manufacturing type company, you should own that asset. But when you combine the future of work and the changes that are happening in how people work, and even in things like manufacturing, right? Will that asset, you may say you want to own it long term, but will that asset be the same in how you do perform your business in 20 years? Will it be the same? What kind of investment is going to be needed? So does it necessarily make sense to own that asset, right? So that's been something where is a real change when you have to look at how a company may be working in the future to a conventional belief on how you should own or occupy your real estate is all changing.
Yeah, no, it's going to be a really interesting thing. And to your point, right, the intersection of all that information that come together it's really great. So just to sort of change speeds a little bit. So one of the things, I mean, we've worked together and I've got to know you a little while. And one of the things I'm always impressed with you is no matter what time of day it is, whether it's 8 a.m., whether it's midday, or whether it's 1 a.m. in the morning, we're trying to finish your lease, your energy is always elevated, right? You're a super high energy guy. What do you do to sort of keep that energy levels high?
Well, first of all, I love what I do, so it makes it easy. I like the fact when you get up in the morning, you never know what your day is going to be like. And as you're getting through your day, you never know how things are going to change. And from our experience in NASDAQ, the good and bad of that whole process. Having a great team around you, that always gets me excited. Other than that, I would say I have a pretty rigorous workout schedule that starts, at 5 in the morning. So that really keeps me going, gets the blood flowing. But I would say it's really loving what I do and being excited every day to reinvent myself.
Yeah, no, it's great. And I can attest, as I said, you always are super high energy, and it's always great dealing with you. So obviously, we've talked about various things, and sort of I always finish with 2 questions that I ask everybody. And obviously, open source workplace is about maximizing workplace productivity and employee experience. So if you had to sort of give everybody one piece of advice, be it personal, be it what you see in your organization or what you see in the market, what's the one thing you want to say that would maximize workplace productivity from your perspective?
Well, first of all, those things go hand in hand, right? So workplace experience and productivity can't have one without the other, or maximizing that productivity. I think that I would say, the exciting part, there's so much focus and energy on workplace experience. But where I think we're still lacking, and where a piece of advice would be, that the actual employee themselves, there needs to be focused on understanding the change, because going to this agile work environment and going to these changes, they are dramatic changes to how people work and what they're comfortable with, and changes always makes everyone uncomfortable. So I don't think there is enough emphasis or effort, money being spent on the employee training and retraining, understanding how the change in the workplace changes business process. So again, back to your changing business process, then how does that affect the employee and the training there? Employee engagement, how to keep driving employee engagement, measuring the feedback to find out where you're lagging and where you're not lagging. And overall, I would say engagement and excitement of that employee. So about high energy. So knowing and creating that community is a real important part of having that productivity and better workplace experience.
Great. Thank you. And look, thank you, Michael. I appreciate you taking the time. I know you're a super busy guy. And I really want to appreciate for all the insights, advice, and guidance you've given to me over the years, and then taking the time to chat with us today. And for anybody who's watching, please feel free to reach out to Michael. He's on Open Source Workplace. We'll put a link in the video below. But please do share and do like this video. So Michael, thank you. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Talk to you soon.
Thank you, sir.
Yep. Bye now.